What is the most humiliating awkward situation that you have ever witnessed in a classroom? 10th grade Chem, girl with 2 rate hairs in our class. First day, her tics were exceptionally odd, mostly high-pitched chirps, sometimes weird cartoon sounding noises. It's pretty hard to describe, and I was sitting in a row with her. On the first day most of the class knew of her and thus didn't really react. But one of my friends 2 rows up just kept looking around and saying what is that, and I guess no one had the heart to answer directly because the girl was sitting right there. Her squeals kept getting worse and worse because she was getting stressed out. It finally escalated to him semi-yelling to me, "Yo, what the frick is that crap?" Granted, these sounds were very weird and almost sounded like a rusty pipe squeaking or something. Little did he know our teacher was standing in the doorway. The girl finally ran out squealing her butt off while the teacher ran after her. The whole class just sat there in stunned silence. Someone meagerly told my friend, "That girl has 2 rate hairs." Pretty dang awkward, especially for the first day. One time, in science class in middle school, we were doing our end of semester presentations. Everyone was presenting their science experiments that we had all spent weeks on and counted for a significant portion of our grade. One girl, who admittedly was not the sharpest crayon in the box and kind of a ditz, got up to present. She was very excited about her breakthrough results. She went on about her hypothesis for several minutes, that light affected the vitamin C levels in different kinds of juices. She launched into detail about her experiment, which involved her testing different types of juices' vitamin C levels over a week or so period, by putting them in the fridge in both clear containers and opaque containers. That way, she explained excitedly, she could test which ones had more light from the fridge affecting their levels. You know where this is going. When she finally asked for questions and the silence was deafening, someone finally asked, "You know the light goes out when you shut the door, right?" It was my favorite science class. TLDR. A girl in my science class nearly fails because she didn't know the fridge light went off when you shut the door. If she got legitimate data differences though, I wondered what happened instead. Not sure if this counts because it was me. In high school I was at the board trying to do a geometry problem. I was bad at math, especially geometry, and the teacher, and the rest of the class, knew this. I was struggling when the rest of the students had returned to their seats. I continued to struggle as the teacher went through the other problems. Coming to me, he tried to talk me through it. He was being very kind and patient, but I was not getting it. Finally I burst into tears and left the room. Later that day I was called to the dean's office where the teacher was waiting. He actually apologized and said he wouldn't send me to the board anymore. He tutored me for the rest of the year so I would pass. That's what you call a great teacher. I appreciate people like that. Senior year in HS health class, we get a police officer come and talk about random police stuff. When he goes off about a kid from a local middle school that brought a gun to school. Big news locally at the time. But then he discloses that after investigations they found out that he was frequently abused by his parents, which no one was aware of. Little does he know that the older brother is sitting right in front of him. The whole class sat awkwardly. In 5th grade during a test, one of the girls in the class asked to go to the bathroom. You could tell she had to go really bad. She had her legs in that about to let loose knot and her hand was over her crotch. The whole 9 yards. The teacher refused because we were taking a test. She pleaded. She begged. You could see her eyes straining to fight back tears. Or maybe it was the urine leaking out because of some internal overflow. Anyway, he refused again. He told her to wait. 5 minutes later, we heard a gasp. Everybody looked up to where the girl was sitting and we all saw a puddle on the floor under her desk. It slowly increased in size and, as it encroached slowly under other students' desks, the teacher instructed us to all get up and go outside. It was awful. That poor girl just sat at her desk with her head down as we all walked out of the room, half laughing and half gagging. That teacher is a dong. First day of classes freshman year of college. I pick a seat in the middle of the lecture hall. Guy comes in, sits in front of me, whips out his laptop and headphones and watches the entire class. In the middle of the lecture hall, at least 40 people behind him. 0 fricks given. A guy very loudly and graphically announcing what he would do to a teacher, with said teacher standing behind his oblivious butt. I think I saw that Teacher here. I was planning on showing a video clip to my class of high school seniors, but my computer for some reason wasn't displaying the video. So, as my students were trickling in, I noticed one of them had his computer on him. I asked if I could use it really quickly, and he said yes. At this point, my entire class of 20 or so kids were in. I hooked up his laptop to the projector and go to download the video from my email. It finished downloading and starts up a video player automatically from his computer. I'm still not quite sure what happened, but I think he had a video player already up. Instead of playing the video clip I just downloaded, the entire screen, a monstrosity that took up the entire classroom wall, showed a very perky young lady fellatting two Asian men. Sloppy BJ noises and grunts echoed deafeningly in the silent classroom. I felt like everything was in slow-mo, but one student later told me I jumped to close the laptop with such quick desperation that it was like watching someone leap on top of a grenade. The owner of the laptop turned bright red, but both he and the whole class started laughing. I think in the end, I was the person who was most embarrassed. The kid even had the balls to say, "Miss Drackling, I know that's not the first time you've seen that before," and then he winked. Speechless. Balls of steel. In the middle of teaching a year 3 class, 7-8-year-olds, a kid comes back in from going to the toilet, sits down and about a minute later shouts out, "Oh no, I forgot to wipe," and asks to go sort himself out. Totally lost my train of thought. That's hilarious, though. A girl in middle school bled through her shorts during her period. She had to walk out of class in front of everyone. Poor girl was known for that all the way through school. Another kid crapped his pants on the bus. His nickname was Shits. I once went to my social studies teacher to turn in a paper during lunch. He and the math teacher were making out on his desk. The math teacher was a Mrs., not my social studies teacher's last name. I hate it when they hyphenate their last name. My 12th grade English teacher used to have us read the short stories and poems aloud to hold interest better. We were reading The Importance of Being Earnest, I think, and this guy with the unfortunate name of Andy Peacock is reading. He gets to the word assuage and he paused. I could see the gears turning in his head as he tried to figure that one out, and I guess he felt pressured to hurry up, and he blurts out, "But sausage." Even the teacher was trying not to laugh while trying to get the rest of us to not laugh at him. It was funny because, well, but sausage, and sad because of how many kids in 12th grade had trouble reading. In all fairness, that was Oscar Wilde, so there was probably plenty of butt sausage going on in the story anyway. In high school, a guy was passing a note to this girl he had a crush on. Teacher caught the note and then read it out loud to the class. The student was asking the girl out via note, and we all had to wait for her response. She said yes, but it was awkward. Would have been pretty cute if it wasn't for the out loud reading of the note. Now the only question left is if she said yes out of awkwardness or not. Gym class. So not really a classroom, but I was good friends with the class clown in middle school who would do anything and everything for a bit of attention. Well, one day my friend decided to take one of his dad's Viagra before school to see what would happen. Well, surprise surprise, he went through his day with a raging Woody, completely unashamed and proud of his accomplishment. That is, until gym class. As soon as we got to gym class, he realized that he had more than he bargained for. Considering everything is visible in gym shorts, he tucked his little buddy up into his waistband and hoped for the best. Well, we had to do a high jump exercise that day that caused his shirt to lift up, displaying the tip of the little dude to everyone in class. Girls cried, guys laughed, the teacher's jaw dropped. He was sent to the office and received a very stern lecture on what the principal bluntly called not being a dumbass. Was your principal red foreman? One of my friends was in English class and told people a dead baby joke. The teacher overheard it and little did they know she had a miscarriage about 2 weeks prior. She had a full mental breakdown in class and just ran out. He felt like such a dong. I did this, but I knew and had forgot. This was in a very small 6th form class. There was like 7 of us. I was pretty much silent the rest of class. She was the best teacher I had. She is the reason I have A levels and I make a freaking dead baby joke weeks after she comes back from a miscarriage. She now has a baby but won't accept my friend request. In middle school I remember waiting for the car rider bell to ring, and my homeroom teacher was talking to two of my classmates, a boy and a girl. Now note, the boy had a little sister who died of cancer a few years ago. So anyways, the girl was telling my teacher how much time she would always spend at the boy's house, saying that she was almost like family. Then my teacher says, "So you're like the daughter they never had, huh?" Out of the office I still cringe just thinking about how silent it got after she said that. My 4th grade teacher was the worst teacher I've ever had. She wasn't just a bad teacher, she was a bad human being. There was one boy who was kind of the weird kid, but he was funny and I liked him. One day we were reading about bugs and she called on him to read aloud a section about antennae. I knew the word antennae, knew how it was pronounced, so when he started reading it was obvious he'd never heard the word before. He pronounced it antenne, and instead of correcting him, our teacher just let him read a full page with this word repeating. I started watching her as he read, and she was smirking and trying to hold back laughter. When he finished reading, she said, "It's pronounced antennae, by the way," and the whole class, her included, just started laughing uproariously. He was a good sport and kind of laughed along with them, but I could tell he was really embarrassed. It's almost 20 years later and that memory is still so vivid to me. Another one was in freshman biology. A guy's voice cracked as he was answering a question and he said, "Sorry, that keeps happening to me. I don't know why." And the teacher kinda chuckled and said, "You should probably ask your dad." Kind of reminds me of 6th grade history. I had to read out loud a couple paragraphs about Louis X, how I pronounced it. Then the teacher told me how I should have pronounced Louis X. My friend and I figured out how to use Task Manager on school computers to send messages. The problem is that it's impossible to tell which computer you're sending it to until it shows up. I typed in "Hey at CPT Cass, don't tell teach, she's being a bee." I sent it to the teacher's computer. I was an idiot in middle school. Good job, Ender. A classmate of mine, call him Guy, had a hearing aid, but also this device for teachers to hang around their neck which sent the audio straight to him so he didn't have to filter out the background noise. Early day cheap hearing aids weren't the best. Anyway, one maths lesson the teacher sets us group work and goes out of the room for some reason. Tells us to get on with it. About a minute later Guy starts to laugh so hard tears come down his face. Naturally we were all very intrigued and he just took out his hearing aid and passes it to someone. The teacher was dropping the loudest crap I have ever heard. Grunting, groaning, loud splashes and wet farts. It was sickening and majestic. She came back and we all lost it. TL. Dr. Hurtstern maths teacher drop horrifying crap summon Cthulhu. I was student teaching in a 5th grade class, and the classroom teacher screamed at one student for doing his homework in class. The student she screamed at has an emotional behavior disorder and I thought he was going to freak out, cry like he often does. Instead, he looked at her and calmly said, "Well, you didn't have to yell at me." The poor kid was 100% right and 100% humiliated by the teacher. Ugh. Reminds me of the time in grade 6 when I got detention for reading ahead of the class and doing the assignment ahead of everyone else. Not exactly a classroom, but had a girl injure herself, pulled muscle, doing the splits during cheerleader tryouts in front of the whole school. She just crumpled up and started crying out there all alone in the middle of the gym. The coaches had to go out and carry her out. She didn't win. I remember a substitute teacher that we had for a few days when I was in middle school. She was pretty overweight and one day she grabbed a chair from an empty desk to help someone out with their assignment, when suddenly we heard a loud crash. One of the legs on the chair had broken and she was flat on her back. It was hard not to laugh, but what made it even worse is as she was getting up, she ended up farting very loudly. The entire class erupted in a fit of laughter and she had to leave the classroom because she was so embarrassed. This happened to a heavyset science teacher of ours when I was in 8th grade. I felt so bad and everyone was laughing. I kept picturing her crying when she went home that night. To clarify, she only broke the chair, no fart. Okay, so just to clarify, everyone in this lecture hall of about 200 students is studying. Subject. If not, then you're in the wrong room. One person stands up and does the walk of shame. Horrible feeling. Bonus points if they awkwardly get up and exit hastily all while failing to keep all their stuff in their arms. The grade was 8th. Social studies. We had a hulking fiery redhead behemoth of a teacher. One day this kid came up to the teacher and said he needed to go wash his hands. The teacher asked why. Boy said he got glue all over his hands. Teacher looked and as a man knew this wasn't glue. This was life juice. Teacher starts yelling at him to go to the office. Boy reaches for the door in CM soaked hands. Teacher screams, "Don't touch anything. Do not touch that freaking doorknob." Guess the kid was jerking off behind the pull down map in the back of the room. Private school. Maths teacher made a slight mistake. Corrected himself. Girl in class shouts out, "Our parents don't pay you to get it wrong." She got completely humiliated by the teacher telling her what was and wasn't appropriate to say to her teacher. She was a T. I was happy he shot her down. Middle school Spanish class. Flaco. Skinny. Grasser. Fat. Everyone turned to the fat kid at the exact same time. I did too, without even thinking about it, and his expression was a pain disgust as he said, "And everybody looks at me." When describing a person, the Spanish word for fat would be gordo gorda. Still feel bad for that kid though. In 10th grade social studies, we were talking about Imperial Russia, and of course, Rasputin. I interrupted whatever my teacher was saying with, "Hey, I heard that Rasputin had a 12-inch penis." I could tell I said something completely inappropriate and totally weird when she just stared back at me. My classmates had gone completely silent. 2. How was I to cover this up and play it cool? I started to panic. Why yeah, I hear that they keep it in a jar somewhere in a museum. Oh god, why? I knew a girl who was convinced zebras were like unicorns and didn't exist. She was a freshman in high school. An entire class was spent looking up pictures and videos of zebras online to prove it to her. The teacher and the class tried everything but she just kept saying, "Well, there are pictures and videos of dragons online too." And using arguments like that, everyone lost all respect for her in that hour. She was too thick-headed to be embarrassed, but everyone there was embarrassed enough for her to make it cringe-worthy as heck. TLDR, zebras are like unicorns to retarded high school freshmen. Autistic girl who was mainstreamed by her parents' insistence, and shouldn't have been. Skirt with no panties. Masturbating loudly in the first row of class. I went to high school in an open concept high school, where there are no walls separating the classrooms and all the hallways are made up by lockers. It was open enough to hear the other classrooms and throw stuff over the dividers, much like those that make up cubicle walls of offices. Skipped to last period of the day, Spanish class. Teacher was new, so she was trying to be strict on bathroom privileges. A freshman girl who was too timid to ask needed to go to the bathroom to throw up because she wasn't feeling well. She was sweating, turning green, and shivering. Instead of just running out, she decided to wait it out until it was time to leave. In no time, she got up, in front of the whole class and threw up in the trash can. Then she apologized and ran out, continuing to puke all down the hallway where all other students could see from their classrooms. Twist, that girl was me. Also, I got my high school boyfriend through that puke fest. Need boyfriend story. Chop chop, get to it now. In 8th grade health class, my teacher was demonstrating how to properly strap someone into a stretcher. She was a smoke show. The dude being strapped in popped a rock hard bone dog as she was leaning over him. This was a class of around 50 immature middle school students all staring at him. He just lay there strapped and unable to move with an awkward boner. He apologized over and over as even our sexy teacher tried not to laugh as she unstrapped him. I still get secondhand embarrassment thinking about it. Sometimes secondhand embarrassment is worse. In 3rd grade we got this new kid in class. At this school we always had separate lines for boys and girls, even when we were sitting around waiting for our grade to be called for us to get up and go to our homeroom. Anyway, this kid's cousin puts him in the girls' line on the first day. We figure she, the cousin, was just being a bee and pulled him back to our side. Anyway, a few weeks go by and we always notice the kid stands there awkwardly against the wall looking down at his feet in the bathroom instead of peeing like we all do. Out of nowhere one day our 3rd grade teacher has us all lined up. Boys on one side, girls on the other, and we're all waiting to use the bathroom. This time though, she's got new kid standing there with her. She says, "Class, this is a girl and so she will be used as the girls' bathroom." Mind blown. I can't even imagine what led up to this finally happening. She never said a thing. Seemed to totally take being a dude in stride. Anyway, I still think about that now and think that must have been incredibly awkward for her. She was a cool dude. A buddy of mine, redacted, had his phone in his pocket when it somehow managed to launch Skype, called a buddy, and turned the volume up during a chem final. Suddenly, the silence is broken by a gruff morning voice saying, "What the frick do you want?" That ended poorly. We had a classroom that was basically featureless because the school wing was brand new and it was the beginning of the year. No decorations or posters on the walls or anything, just blackboards on both the front and back walls, and a door on the back one. This is important for later. Anyway, I had a classmate, whom I shall call O, who often fell asleep in class. He sat in the back row, presumably to facilitate this habit. Middle of a lecture and we hear a loud snore. O is fast asleep at his desk. After we all chuckle about this, the teacher decides to play a good-natured prank. He has us all turn our desks around and starts writing on the blackboard at the back of the room. Since he is now talking from 5 feet away, presumably O will wake up from the noise, notice he is now at the head of the class with everyone facing him, and be embarrassed enough to stay alert from now on. A couple of minutes pass and sure enough O begins to stir. He opens his eyes, sees the teacher right next to him and all his classmates grinning at him, and panics. I can only assume that in his half-awake state he somehow thought he had actually been moved to the front of the featureless, remember, room. He jumps out of his desk, and I think tried to bolt out of the room, but because he doesn't know what side of the room he's on, he doesn't realize the door is behind him. He runs to the front of the class and for a few seconds is staring at where the door would be, while we all laugh. Eventually he turns around and figures it out, his face turning bright red. TLDR. Teacher tries to prank a sleeping student, ends up accidentally gaslighting him. That is freaking hilarious. High school, senior year, college algebra. Kid falls asleep in the back of class toward the end of semester. Teacher decides to punish him by waking him up and telling him to hand out the assignment. Kid calmly tells teacher I'd rather not. Teacher, who was kind of a B, thinks kid is messing with her, gets P, and insists that he get up. Kid shrugs, slowly stands up revealing massive erection in his athletic shorts. Some kids laugh. Most of us are stunned including the teacher. Teacher clearly has no idea what to do and returns to her desk telling us to work on our assignments until the end of class. Kid proceeds to hand out papers at half-mast while maintaining nonchalant attitude. He never got in trouble. TLDR. Kid gets huge boner and handles it like a boss. This kid Cora was being a prick in class, shouting out, trying to be funny, so this big dude Jefferson who sat behind Cora flicked him in the ear. Cora started to cry, but it started off as that wheezy silent cry. Everyone turned to look at him, and the crying escalated until he was sobbing uncontrollably. There was snot coming from his nose and he was drooling, and he was holding his ear like he had just been shot. He started punching the desk and screaming why. The teacher was just asking him what was wrong and Cora said Jefferson is being a crap, so she told him to watch his language or go to the office. He started crying even harder and fell to the ground, curled up in a ball. She had to lift him up by the arm and take him to the office. When he came back near the end of class, Jefferson flicked him again and he just shrieked and the situation basically repeated itself, except the teacher had much less tolerance and sent him to the office immediately. Oh yeah, this was in 11th grade. Jefferson, that crap. Some weird kid in class was being annoying and the girl in front of him turned around and said, "Shut up Josh, no one likes you." Everyone laughed. I caught the teacher smirking, while Josh just put his head down on his desk. I felt bad for him, because it was true, no one liked Josh. I was about 15. In science class, I was paired with this girl who was obnoxiously loud, smart, but no common sense. Well, she asked out really loud, "See, when you're giving a blowjob, do you suck or blow? Because I heard you suck, but why is it called a blowjob? Makes no sense." I had to hush her because I'm 100% sure the teacher heard, and the rest of the class. I was so embarrassed, she didn't give a frick. I didn't wipe properly after taking a crap and got some poo on the back of my shirt and on my pants. Didn't notice until it rubbed into my chair and started stinking. You're that kid. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.